What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my 25 Days of Christmas Marathon. Today, we're going to be talking about a film that I've seen a million times and always appreciated, but never really loved up until now for whatever reason, and that's Elf. To most, this is a great feel-good film for the holidays with Will Ferrell at the helm. It has this Rudolph vibe to it, whereas an elf protagonist that's not happy in their own skin and wanting more for himself, but separates itself from that film in many respects, starting with the fact that it's live action, has many more jokes sewed in, and along with the great direction that it had. Just the whole concept of watching an elf take on the real world and how he interacts with everything is completely gold and super original. I really don't know how or why it is, but to me, this almost reminds me of like a tame Borat in a way, where it has the big-time paid actor acting amongst real people that don't really know they're in a movie. When it comes to the story, firstly, I thought it was very well paced out, moving at such a brisk pace. The exposition was handled in such a fun way through Bob Newhart's narration, doing a great job of setting the table for what's to come. The first act was handled so well, arguably being the best piece of the film from the way it was coordinated, the way they handled the CGI, and honestly, the minimal amount of CGI that they used, and also the sets and set pieces they included, really tying everything together so well. It may not have been the most original kickstart to a film, but the way they introduced our main protagonist, along with the setup and miniature adventure story sewed in, it just led into what turns out to be a great second and third act. The story as a whole isn't really anything groundbreaking, where, again, it takes some ideas from Rudolph while having that fish out of water story, and then the whole situation of a neglectful parent having to choose between his job and his family. But at the end of the day, the story was such a breeze to get through due to Jon Favreau's direction and, of course, Will Ferrell and James Caan's presence and delivery. Now, speaking of Will Ferrell and James Caan, let's dive into their performances. Now, with Will Ferrell, he put all of his eggs in one basket and turned it all the way up to 11, and it worked for all the right reasons. The dedication he gave to this role is nearly unmatched, the charisma he added to the character is super clever, and his line delivery is truly out of this world, selling every piece of dialogue in the way he thought was the best way of doing it. It's not so much that he plays two different types of characters, because he very much is just one, but there's certain times where he nails that adult elf aspect, and there's other times where he puts on this almost childish persona, and again, works for all the right reasons. Now, admittedly, I'm personally not the biggest Will Ferrell fan, although he's very clearly loved by many, especially his peers around him, but for me, this is honestly one of his best and my favorite roles of his. Again, the direction Favreau gave was well put together, but Ferrell put this film on his back and carried it. Now, when you want to talk about nailing a performance, James Caan is absolutely tremendous in this role as Walter Hobbs, aka the dad, putting out this incredible subtle reaction type of charisma. With Ferrell, you can obviously tell he's acting, but with Caan, it basically seemed like he's genuinely reacted to what Ferrell was doing, and it worked tremendously well. With Will, clearly he gets all the best lines, but I think I personally laughed the hardest when Caan would react to him, because everything was just so dry yet so damn funny. Now, with his performance aside, I also found this character arc to be quite sweet. It isn't anything you haven't seen before, but because, to me anyways, it wasn't the main focus of the film, it just hit that much better, adding such a sweet touch to this already sweet film. Then when it comes to Daniel Tay, aka the son, he may not have been the best actor of the bunch, but to back on what I was saying about Caan's arc, his dynamic with Ferrell was very nice. It was pretty predictable on how it was going to turn out, but their chemistry just worked so well for me. Although the film nearly hit all the right notes for me, it's clearly not a perfect film, starting with the silliness. Calling a spade, there isn't a comedy film that's ever been made where all the jokes land, and Elf certainly isn't an exception. But in the case of Elf, there's definitely some moments that are just a bit overcooked and could come off skit-like. And honestly, the only other real issue I had outside of the shallow plot and silliness was the love interest. Zooey Deschanel isn't bad by any stretch, but for me, it just really wasn't all that necessary. I completely understand the reasoning behind it, but it definitely doesn't really help with the originality of the plot, and for my money, they just didn't need it. They had enough to facilitate the plot. In some respects, it was nice to see to help balance out the tone, so it wasn't just Will Ferrell acting a fool with the same couple characters, but in reality, what female would find an elf attractive? It just doesn't make sense to me. Overall, I feel like most people like it. Elf may not be everyone's cup of hot cocoa, but it's certainly mine. It gets a 7 out of 10 from me. Let me know what you think of Elf in the comments below, and let me know what film you'd like to see me review next. See you guys in the next one.